Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live at Strata in our online Facebook community. I'm super excited today because I get to interview Dr. Daniella Perri. She's a naturopathic doctor. She knows a ton of different stuff. We're trying to figure out exactly what we want to talk about today, and we managed to whittle it down to how to manage stress, especially for women. Dr. Perri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to offer information, education to all of our listeners. And if I can help at least one person, then I've done my job.
I love that you have that kind of outlook on life. It's just about helping as many people as we can. And those
Yeah,
are kind of people at Strata that we like to get to know.
that's awesome.
So, Dr. Daniella, before we go too far into everything, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your story, why you do what you do, all that fun stuff.
All right. Well, I've been a naturopathic doctor for about 7.5 years. I also did a Bachelor of Science in Health and Disease as my undergrad, and then I moved on to a Master of Science in Immunohematology. So suffice it to say that I do love science, but more than that, I really loved working with people. So I kind of always knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I went in a roundabout way of getting there. And this was the route in terms of being a naturopathic doctor that allowed me to live my life and have it be congruent with my work and my career. And so now I'm able to help people based on, the things that I do in my own life and for my own family.
So that's awesome. And like,
Yeah.
I'm always very curious when I hear people say like what they're passionate about. I'm always curious about why they're passionate about it. What is it about working with people that makes you so passionate about it?
I think it's just that I'm human as well. And so I can relate to so many different things in people's lives. Now, having said that, there are a million other life stories out there, and that intrigues me the most. And I can tell you from school, the best part of the program was being in clinic and just meeting so many new people and being able to be entrusted with their stories and their lives and their concerns, and being that one person to help them on their health journey.
Love it. I love it. And listen, I don't want to keep the people waiting any longer. They came
Yeah,
here to hear you
of course.
talk about stress, all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So, the first thing I guess I'm really curious about and I want to know is what is stress and why is it so important to talk about?
So I feel like I'll start with this. So everyone goes through, their life and their life journey, and things pop up. And we often go to our doctor, and most of the time, things are good and your tests are good and results are good, and yet you're still not feeling your best. And it's all chalked up to, you have a lot of stress. Let's just try to calm down. But really, stress has a big impact on our lives, and our bodies and our minds. So I find that it's super important to treat the stress and the effect that it has on the body. Now, stress does have um, an organic component. So, without talking about good stress or bad stress right now, our stress response basically helps us to react to our world. So, even without stressors, we have these little organs on top of our kidneys that secrete cortisol. Now, without these stressors, cortisol does spike in the morning. It helps us wake up. It does come down. And then we have a little spike again in the middle of the day to kind of keep us going for the rest of the day. And then it slowly creeps down until nighttime, where it's at its lowest point, so that it allows us to sleep. So that's the normal cycle of cortisol. But anytime throughout the day, we can have additional spikes. And this is where
Mm.
the stressors come in. And so it's a matter of, for each patient that I see and each person, talking about what those stressors are.
And so, those stressors, is there a way that people can manage them such that they don't have such a big impact? Or are those stressors like just like a really good thing? We need to have all those stressors. Like, how should people be thinking about managing some of these stressors they have in their day to day life?
Right. So, something like, okay, I'll start with this. There are good and bad stressors, and it's all based on human
Mhm.
perception and an individual perception as well. So, something like, announcing that you're getting married and or moving to a new home or starting a new program. These, for some people, can be perceived as good stressors, whereas things like losing a job, losing a loved one, grief can be perceived to other people as the bad stressors. But regardless of the stress, your body in terms of physiology will react the same way. So you do have the
Mm.
cortisol spikes. So what's important to know is that after the stressor is perceived and sort of dealt with, the cortisol will come back down. Now, the issue and the concern for your health and how it impacts your everyday life in a chronic situation is if that stressor is constantly there. And
Mm.
so instead of cortisol coming back down, it stays elevated in your body. And this is where damage to tissues and organs can occur.
And so, why is it that a lot of the people that you see can't seem to figure out how to manage some of these stressors? It seems like, yes, we have stress, and it seems like to one extent or another, it's a necessary thing. Because if we didn't get
Right.
stressed out, I'm sure that would affect our physiology. But I guess what I'm asking is how do we start managing some of these things? Is one of the ways to feel better to learn how to manage our responsibilities in life better? I'm not sure if that makes sense or not.
Yeah. So I was kind of thinking about that when we were talking about, what we can talk about, and it's if we can change sort of the way we look at it, it's not so much about managing the stressors because for the most part, those stressors are. Sometimes inevitable, sometimes by surprise, and we can't choose which stressors to have in our life, and so they're always going to be there at one point or another. So, what instead we can do is manage how we react to those stressors. So, yes, we have the physiological reaction in terms of cortisol that will happen, that we also can't really control, but we can control our reactions to these specific stressors. So, for example, some people, they get, stressor in their life and they go for a run, and that's their thing to just let off steam and, clear their mind. For others, it's talking to someone. For others, it's writing. So, there's a lot of different strategies that we can use. To deal with our reactions to a stress. But having said that, it's hard for people to figure out what those strategies are. And that's where I come in. So we talk about everything and how the stressor is affecting, an individual's life. And we come up with coping strategies.
Mhm.
And it's one of the hardest things, but one of the biggest things to help people manage a stressful time.
It's interesting that you say all that because it never occurred to me that it's not necessarily about trying to mitigate the stress or get rid of it, because that stress is always going
Right.
to be there. It's more about how do we choose to react to it once it's presented to us. That's what I'm hearing, or maybe I'm mistaken.
Yes, no, you're absolutely correct. Yes. And so, for example, we can go back to good and bad stressors. So let's say your daughter, your son told you they're getting married. The stressor is, oh my goodness, like it's a happy stress, right? So your
Mhm.
reaction is to hug them and to call other family members and spread the word. And it can be the complete opposite for when you hear that you lost your job or you lost a family member. And so for some, it's a common reaction is to cry or
Mm.
to become introverted and not talk and show complete like no emotion at all, and that can be a stressor as well. Now, one thing I didn't really talk about is all these things that all these stressors are external, and so
Mm.
they come into our lives, our vision, our perception, our minds, but then they turn into internal stressors. So and this is what happens when that external stressor is constant. So it's constantly there, like for example, your boss at work constantly hounding you for due dates and work and piling work on you, and it's just a constant stressor, that you internalize that, and for each individual, it can show up and manifest in different physical forms. And
Mhm.
so, when people go to their doctor, they're often treated for those um, manifestations. So, treated for anxiety, treated for, maybe they have some skin ailments that all of a sudden showed up, and they've had 6 months of stress. But what's sort of left behind is treating how the body's affected by the stress. So what I'm talking about is the adrenal glands. That's our key organ to be treating in conjunction with all the other body systems as well.
So it's interesting because part of what I heard there was oftentimes people will have things pop up, like it could be a skin condition. And what
Right.
I'm hearing is that it's symptomatic of not dealing with the stress. Is that correct?
Yes,
Or
it
not
can be.
reacting to the right way?
No, you're absolutely right. It can be when uh, that whole pattern of having that stressor in your life and not dealing with your reaction or processing your reaction in an effective way, that it eventually affects other body systems, and so your body will find a way to relieve the stress. And so it could be a skin ailment, it could be a digestive ailment, it could be a mental ailment. And so your body needs to protect you by getting rid of the stress. And because you're in a stressful state, you're just going to see it as, oh, look, another skin condition that I have to deal with on top of all the other stress that I have to deal with in my life. So, this is why I love doing what I do, because I spend so much time with my patients and we talk about everything. And so we go through each aspect of their life, their daily life, and
Mhm.
their past life, and sorry, their history, their family history, and medical history, and I can see the patterns. So the person themselves, when they're in stressful situation or state, they don't see the patterns, but I do, and so I help them realize what those patterns are and how to get out of them.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? There's it's amazing how sometimes we are the last to know what's actually going on, only because we can't see what's in our blind spots. So we need people like gather the right information, ask us the right questions, get whatever information you need in order to help us figure out what's going on, right? We're always sometimes, we're always the last to know. And I suppose this kind of leads into part of the topic for today, which is, do women and men experience, or are there certain scenarios that women are more prone to that men wouldn't be based on their physiology and biology?
Yes, so there are some differences. Now, for that basic reaction or basic cortisol curve, everyone has that. So males,
Mhm.
females will have that. That's how we wake up in the morning, how we can fall asleep. But yes, the stressors can be the same. So men and women can still experience, a job loss, a family, member loss, or family member getting married or a new job, or entering retirement. That can be happy occasions as well for both males and females. Um, but yes, because of our physiology, and I like to take a moment just to kind of focus on hormone balancing, because those are sort of
Mhm.
two um, differences between males and females. Actually, when you look at it from a science perspective, males and females do have the same sex hormones, so estrogen, testosterone, but in different levels. So certain levels are
Mhm.
within males,
Mhm.
certain levels are within females. Now, when females go through a stress, they can experience different things like, their menstrual cycle being completely off or disrupted, or for younger females not being able to conceive can be part of stress. For males, it can be the same thing. They have these stressors coming in. It affects their hormones and the production of their hormones, and so they're not able to perform how they would like to perform in an intimate way. That can be a huge um, stressor on them, and then it snowballs, and it becomes anxiety and a mental ailment as well. So that's a big one for males as well. Um, And so, to answer your question, yes, you have these differences between males and females that when you are in a stress or you think you're actually managing the stress, and yet these changes in your hormones are creeping up insidiously, you don't see that they're connected. Again, which is why I'm here to say, okay, look what you're doing, look what your body is doing, how it's reacting, but look at what's following you in your day-to-day life. You have this going on that stresses you out. And I often ask my patients, what's the intensity of your stress today? And when you're in a constant state of stress, I always get 9 or 10 out of 10. And so we can see how that pattern affects their hormones.
And so, with all that in mind, you've distinguished that like there's a large. They're not maybe the words you used weren't large, but there's a difference between male and female biology in that we have the same hormones, but they are in different levels, obviously, and there are obviously different like hormones in the body that are going to affect us differently. So, with all that being said, is the way that you might help a woman or a female different than the way that you might help a male when it comes to managing stress and some of the symptomatic of it?
Yes, there definitely. So there's things that we can do that are the same, and definitely things that we can do that are different. So the way I treat everybody is I do treat the underlying cause, but then I also treat symptomatically. So for women, if the symptoms of the chronic stress are a change in her menstrual cycle or really, really intense perimenopause or menopausal symptoms, we treat those symptoms, but then at the underlying cause of that, if it's really the stress, then I also treat the adrenal glands and also that cortisol pattern and helping the body deal with the stressors. So yes, there's the talk of how can we reduce your exposure to the stress, but for the most part, we can't, whether it's because if it's a job or something that's beyond our control. So instead, I help that person's body react to a stress better. Now, for males, same thing. I will treat their physical symptoms, what they are dealing with, what they can't deal with in a day to day basis. But if the underlying cause is a stress, I will also treat the adrenal glands as well.
Beautiful. And so today, we're really focusing and talking about women here. And I'm curious, have you found that there's some strategies that work better for women than men? And I suppose you have a couple different strategies you may be able to share with women who are listening that they could start implementing to help them start managing their stress.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a lot. And again, because I'm a female too, and trying to figure out, how can I help other women and what I've tried and what worked, what I've seen my patients try and what worked for them. So, one of the biggest strategies that I use a lot for my patients is getting your thoughts out. So, I talked about how external stressors become internal stressors. And so, that internal stressor is for the most part your mind. So you have your mind going in circles and circles and thinking and talking and worrying all within this internal environment. You need to get that out. And so one of the best ways is writing. And so I've told a lot of women to either, if it's easier, you can type, but I find it's a little bit more therapeutic to write things out with a pen and a paper. And the
Mhm.
best part of it is that you don't have to keep the paper. You can throw it away, you can shred it, you can burn it, and that just helps you release that internal stressor. Because, like I said before, once you have that internal stressor now, it's going to wreak havoc on your body the longer that it stays inside you.
That
And
is
so that's one of the biggest
you,
things that
please.
I do um, tell women about. Um, and then the other strategy is very, very simple, is to move and drink water. And so when you're staying hydrated and moving, uh, it just helps move everything within your body. So when you feel different ailments and pains and aches and even emotions, right? You're feeling really, really angry or really, really sad. It's because it's concentrated. And so the movement and
Mm.
the water just helps things flow. And that movement doesn't have to be a 5 day a week exercise program. It can just be a 10-minute walk every day or every other day. It's just a matter of moving. And then the last one, which I thought was really great for women, women innately are creators, right? Whether women choose to have children or not, it's built in our system to create life. And that's a huge piece of artwork if you think about it. So, whatever your choice is, you still have that innate ability to create art. And so, finding ways where you can be creative can help release and help you deal with some of the reactions to whatever stressor you have in your life. So you don't have to be, an amazing painter or, build amazing houses. It can just be like a little little canvas that you're painting on, or gardening, or whatever you find that helps you be creative. I find really, really helps and works for women.
That's awesome. So we
Hmm.
had putting your thoughts on paper, ideally, rather than typing, which is great. Like get it out of your brain
Yes,
so it's out of your body. The second thing was like drink
exactly.
water and move to get that energy flowing. And the last one was that women are these natural creators, which I love the way you put that, by the way. And so
Hmm.
creating and being involved in a creative process, I guess, like whether it's art or dance or whatever that might be for you, is another
Exactly.
great way to help manage and deal with that. Awesome. So
Yes.
I got a couple questions here
Sure.
from people who wanted to know more about, I guess, some of their information they wanted to get out there. I didn't articulate that very well, but I
Of
think
course.
everyone gets what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So to know from a natural approach if there's any truly good supplements to take for high anxiety. I think if I controlled that better, my stress would be better. Sometimes I feel like I live in a constant long-term state of stress. Do you have any supplement recommendations, or do you have any thoughts on even managing stress with supplementation?
Yes, of course. So when I do have patients who that's their main concern, they're just always stressed out. I do try to support their adrenal glands from a supplement perspective. I try to keep it as conservative as possible. I don't give more than two, max maybe three, but I usually do 1 to 2 different supplements because that alone can be a stress on the body as well, trying to process the supplements from a biological point of view.
Mhm.
But my go tos for treating the adrenal glands are botanicals. So these botanicals are called modulators. They're modulators for the adrenal glands. So if you're in a constant state of stress, it'll help bring down the activity of the adrenal glands. If your adrenal glands are not working as they should, they kind of boost them up. And so things like ashwagandha, ginseng, rhodiola, there's so many different botanicals that have these effects on the adrenal glands that I find are super effective. Now, when I have a patient in front of me and I have all the information, I can fine tune which combination of botanicals with other supplements to make it more effective for them and what they're experiencing. So a lot of the times I do have people, going through a stressor, going to a supplement store, and finding, a particular adaptogen that will help with their adrenal glands, but it's not helping as they want it to, or it's taking too long to take effect. And that's because there's other things that are not addressed, or
Mhm.
it's not the right combo for them. So that's why I help patients in that regard.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that because it's very how to put this here. Like, the word that comes to mind is risk averse, but it's very it's good that you say like these are some ideas, but like everyone's different, right? Because we can't just say, hey,
Exactly.
take the supplements, a magic little pill. And like I love that you weave that into your answer.
Yes.
One more question here from the audience, and then we're
Sure.
gonna get close to wrapping up because I promise you 10:45 would be done here, and I want to respect your time.
Okay.
Finding the right balance between good and bad stress in retirement. Can you speak to that a little bit? Someone's retired and the stress in my life.
Yes. So, just to kind of give like a scenario, just because you're retired doesn't mean you won't have stressors. There's
Mhm,
stressors during retirement, right? Now, the right balance. I wish I could give the right balance of all stressors to everyone and to all my patients. But like I said before,
mhm,
most of these stressors are either inevitable or just out of our control. So it's in retirement, you've sort of gone through that phase of your life where you've worked, Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday, and now, the stressors maybe, trying to find another purpose in your life, and what to do for, the
mhm,
next 30 or 40 years. And that can be daunting for some people, um, depending if they live with, their partner who is either also retired or maybe not retired, so they see that they're going to work and they're not. So it's, to answer that question, truthfully, it's hard to find that balance for each person. They have to find it on their own, but
mhm,
we can help them deal with that stressor and respond to those stressors. Like I said before,
mhm,
trying to find coping strategies and things that work for them. Being retired,
mhm.
for, like I said before, for females, it's about, one of the strategies can be being creative. For males and females as well, but for males, we can, talk about, what are your hobbies? What do you like doing? What do you love doing? What were you not able to do fully while you were working for 40 years that you now have so much time for? Get into that and find that focus again and that love, for doing something that you missed, for so long, to kind of get you into that stress and stress relief and coping strategy time.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Dr. Perry, I really wanted to ask you some rapid fire questions, but technical issues on my end. We're a little bit
that's
short
okay.
on time here. And you honestly, you were answering some questions so beautifully, I didn't want to stop you.
That's
So
okay.
if it's okay with you, I would love if you could tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to find me and some information is on my Instagram page at Dr. Daniella Perry. I'm in the moment of sort of rebuilding my website. So stay tuned for that. I will be posting information and links on my Instagram page. But if you are interested in booking an appointment with me, there's a link in my bio on my Instagram page. You can book a 15-minute free consultation just to, ask me more questions and see if we can work together. And there's also time slots available for full appointments. So you can start there, and hopefully I can help you on your health journey.
I can't say enough great things about Dr. Perry. She's been amazing to chat with and get this interview going. I actually do some work with Harmony House Wellness, where I know is one of the places that you work at group over there. I
Yes.
can't say enough great things. And Dr. Perry, thank you so much for joining us today. This was actually awesome, and I learned so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having such a great interview. And I hope I answered all your questions and everyone else's questions, the best that I could. But like I said, if you need more questions, we can definitely talk again.
You were absolutely remarkable, and I appreciate you coming down.
Thanks again.
Everybody, this is, I know, thank you. Everybody, this has been another live interview on behalf of Strata. Thank you again to Dr. Perry for coming out. We look forward to doing maybe another one with you in the future if you're open to it. But other than that, everyone, just thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care,
All
everyone.
right. Bye.